Hello everyone, and thank you for coming to our third town hall. This town hall will consist of about 20 to 25 minutes of presentations on the campaign, followed by a big announcement, and then a question, answer, and comment section for the remaining time. Please keep yourself muted for this first part, and more instructions will follow. With that, I would like to throw it over to Christy, who will open this town hall with a territorial acknowledgement and a prayer.
All right. Special prayer for each and every one of the ones in the circle right now. I just want to introduce myself. My name is Christy Red Hawk Woman David. I'm from the Wet'suwet'en Nation out of Smithers, BC. I live in Surrey, Newton, so this plays a big part in my life. I want to say thank you to the land. Simiamu, Wasan, Kwaekwet, Kwekwetim, Patsy, and the Kwantlam. We're visiting this land, and I want to say a special prayer to each and every one of the members here. Creator, we give thanks every day. Truly, you're the maker, giver of all here on earth. Have pity on us, grandfathers, for you have been given a long time of life. Assist us, our Creator, that we may have good thoughts and that we may live life in a good way. We ask for blessings of all our neighbors, our family, our siblings, our children, and our grandchildren. Every night we ask to go to bed. May we be safe in our keeping, and we are good, have a good rest, and awaken again to a new day. Blessings on each and every word you say. It's the voice of your grandchildren. Aho. Thank you.
Great. So Ken, if you could get started, you're gonna be doing you're gonna share some slides of your own. So I believe you are a co-host.
Yes, thank you, Sebastian. For those who don't know me, my name is Ken Bennett, and I'm a longtime resident of Surrey. I lived near Bear Creek Park for over 30 years, and I'm a professional biologist. I worked in local government for my entire career, including 10 years with the city of Surrey through the 1990s. I raised my family, and my wife and I spent many, many days and hours in Bear Creek Park. So what I'm going to do here is recount some history for you on how we got to the position that we're in. I'm going to share my screen now, and I'll start. Did it come up? All right.
Not quite yet. It takes a couple of seconds usually.
Oh, okay.
There you go, Ken. It's up.
Okay, just hang on a sec. All right, everybody see the Nemesis?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So,
we see it.
yep, if you're familiar with 84th Avenue, you will recognize this spot. Our keen protesters are here every Wednesday. This is 84 at King George Boulevard. This shot was taken in 2009, and it has not changed much. We're looking due east, right down the middle of the road, cuts across Bear Creek, King Creek, the meadows, and then slashes right through that forest. So here we go. How did we get here? Well, first you have to understand what we did many, many years ago for a transportation plan. And It was basically a desktop exercise about 100 years ago where they divided the lower mainland up into 1 mile by 1 mile grids. And each grid is now divided into 8 blocks. So the blocks then became avenues east-west and streets became north-south. So if you live in Surrey, you know this. There's 8 blocks in 1 mile in any direction. And 1 block is 1/8 of a mile. Now you can do the conversion to metric. It's actually quite easy. And in this way, you can find your way around Surrey anywhere given an address and a street. So Surrey has adopted this grid pattern. But the important point is somebody simply took a ruler to a map and drew lines. No regard to topography, creeks, or anything else that's in the way. So that's all that is. So in the 1930s, 1932, Surrey purchased that entire section that we know as Bear Creek Park. And of course, bears were frequent in that park, and there was a logging camp in there at one time, and it is now named Bear Creek Park because of that. Now, in 1938, Surrey established that area as Bear Creek Park. And at this point, I have to acknowledge George Zachlin, longtime resident on the east side of an 84th near the park. And as a child, he attended that very day when they established Bear Creek Park. And he told me he remembers thinking, we just bought a mud lot full of stumps because it had only just been logged. Now, 1938, here's an excerpt from that fateful day. And basically, it shows you the foresight of council and the residents of the city of Surrey recognizing what Bear Creek Park could become. And our current council has no vision. So what did Bear Creek Park become? Well, in 1973, the city dedicated the land north of 84th as Bear Creek Park. Here's 84th Avenue. You can see the little hand across the screen. That's the area north, and it's now dedicated as park. However, over time, the city acquired land to the south, and we call that the Southlands. This is the church on the corner, and the city got this as part of that development. This is the temple. The city took that as part of the development. The city still owns this piece, and the Vedic temple is here, and they got this piece. And in the past, they took this chunk as well. Over here is where the apartment blocks are. So you can see Bear Creek Park extends a long way into the Southlands, and with some foresight could actually become a very beautiful area. Now, roads and highways. In 1980s, you have to understand what was thought in order to understand how we got to 84. The official community plan in 87 shows the Bear Creek connector. Now that is not 84th Avenue. That's actually a highway that's going to go from basically Scott Road down the power line all the way to 176th. So it was going to connect the upcoming Nordell Way from Alex Fraser and all the way over to 176. I'm going to show this map because it's a better way of trying to understand where it is. This map is from 1993. I orient you on this map. This is Bear Creek Park, as we know it, right here. This is 84th. The Bear Creek connector, Nordell Way doesn't exist yet. Comes through here, comes down the power line by the park, and then follows this all the way over and eventually connects to Fraser Highway in 176. Alternate routes were 80th and a continuation of 84th and of course 88th. So the city had plans for this Bear Creek connector, the South Perimeter Road, and the Serpentine connector. And the Serpentine connector was another highway connecting Highway 99 in the south to 176 through the Serpentine Flats. However, in 1997, the Serpentine connector was shelved. The Bear Creek connector was deemed not necessary because there were problems with the two golf courses and ALR land. However, 84th Avenue remained as the preferred west-east connector option. So that's why we're here. So 1997, here we go. The engineering department working behind the scenes. And this seems to be the way they operate. They don't come forward to the public with any kind of meaningful consultation until they actually have a design in place. They completed their design. They had an open house and a bogus survey. And the survey was supported by most of the people who filled it out. Why? Because just like the last one we saw, it was biased and misleading. And all the questions led to the desired result. And I'm going to show you that survey because this is what they do. These are the summary of the survey questions. It's really bad, and we had to put up with this for many years. Now you guys, while you're watching, you can read through the list, but I'm going to highlight the two yellows. And it says, as long as there is no major environmental impact to Bear Creek Park, I would support the 84th Avenue extension. 80%. The other one, if they do not cut down some trees to extend 84, I support the extension. Of course you will. So in 2000, the opposition grows. And of course, we're motivated and we're starting to get out into the neighborhoods with our flyers and posters. We had tables in the park. We got kicked out of the park several times by the bylaw officers because we needed a permit in order to present our case for sleeping the park. We had letters to council, and council felt the pressure. So they referred the issue to the Parks and Recreation Culture Commission. And that led to the fateful meeting on November 15th, 2000. At that meeting, 249 residents attended. And for 2 hours, all speakers, including myself, all spoke in opposition. Afterwards, the commission unanimously voted in opposition to 84. The council's favor, they listened and they abandoned 84. Now, interesting, Mayor McCallum was the mayor at the time. However, I'm not sure how he voted. Afterwards, we asked council many times to close the 84th Avenue easement and return that land and all the southlands back to the park. And each time it was denied. So something is going on. So we're going to go to 2004. We're at the Surrey Environmental Partners meeting, September 21, 2004. Thank you, Deb Jack. Guest speaker, Paul Ham, General Manager, Engineering at the time, states council does not support 84th Avenue. Sigh of relief. 3 years later, another bogus survey shows up on 84th Avenue. There's an open house on May 20, 2007, May. Then it goes quiet for 2 years. September 2009, 84 is back yet again. The engineering department suddenly announces consultation. The engineering department releases its final design and states that in 1 month's time, the final report will be going to council on October the 5th of 2009 for final approval. They are shovel ready. Well, all hell breaks loose now. We have 1 month. Engineering holds an open house on the final design. There's no input, that's typical, just comments on how we want the road to look. Concerned residents, including myself and many others in our ad hoc committee, we hijacked the open house. There were about 150 people there. So we set up our own tables of information. We had our petition spread out. And after they made their presentations, we took over. It was an absolute disaster for the city. So in less than 1 month, we developed flyers, posters, petitions, banners, road signs, billboards, letters. We had many articles in the paper, Facebook. The opposition was growing. And the key ended up when we conducted our own town hall, several hundred who were motivated. This brings us to that fateful council meeting on October 5, 2009, and this is Mayor Watts now. The Land Conservancy and George Zachlin present to council. In it, we introduce a legal summary and opinion, which was very preliminary at the time, from West Coast Environmental Law, Andrew Gage, lawyer. The council chambers are packed. There's standing room only in the foyer with people watching on TV. There are hundreds of people there. There's much debate at council. It goes on for a long time. However, in the end, from a 7-2 in favor of 84, we turned council votes from 8 to 1 against. Councillor Hunt was the only one to vote in favor of 84. The place actually erupted in jubilation. Again, after we asked council to close 84, to dedicate that land for park, each time it was denied. And of course, yet again, 84 is not dead. And this brings up the issue. Every time we fight this thing, it's not dead, it comes back. So here we go again. In February 2021, council fast tracks 84. Why? We don't know. It's the same issues. All these issues you see on your screen, we heard over and over and over again for the last 21 years. And they're all refuted. There's no reason for this road. So I'll leave you with this. These are pictures from 2009. The board that you see is our current one with my force of nature. This is in the right of way. This is in the right of way for those of you who know Bear Creek Park. This is King Creek. The right of way runs right here. This is the South Loop Trail. The right of way runs right through here. This is a sad state of affairs, and I could go on and on about the environmental protection, but I'll leave that to Deb Jack. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll pause it there.
Great, thanks for that historical overview, Ken. Ken has already touched on what's been happening in the most recent iteration of this fight, but I'm just going to go over it in a bit more detail. So in March, the plan for extending 84th Avenue through Bear Creek Park was suddenly, without any explanation, fast-tracked from being on the city's long-term plan to being first in a 5-year window and then in a 2-year window in a single meeting. You'll notice that lines up to being right before the next election. And now that we see the plan for the road construction, we also see that it's scheduled to be finished right before the next election. So in response to this, we immediately formed Friends of Bear Creek Park and launched our petition to stop it. Thank you to everyone who signed it and supported us during those initial weeks. Later in March, council approved a contract for initial design of this road, and then the city engaged in an extremely flawed public consultation process. They didn't run any advertisements in the big newspapers. Their survey assumed the road was a done deal, and even postcards that were supposed to go out to residents nearby didn't reach their destination in many cases. We can go to the next slide. Great. So when it came time to approve the next phase of the road and accept the results of the public engagement process, council accepted the recommendations of the report in a 5-4 vote. So this was in spite of the fact that we submitted a petition of over 6,800 against the road, in contrast to a 500-person petition in favor of the road. It should also be noted, interestingly here, that the Safe Surrey Coalition claimed to have a petition of over 13,000 names in favor of the road on social media. And that petition didn't appear anywhere as an official submission to council, so you have to ask where that submission was or whether that initial claim was maybe a little bit false. So we're thankful to those councillors who were in opposition, Law Condile, Pettigrew, and Ennis, they voted against even receiving the corporate report in question for information. They cited the extremely poor public consultation process for rejecting that report. Go to the next slide, please. So shortly after council accepted that report, a backhoe arrived at 84th Avenue and King George Boulevard. We were able to issue a threat of an injunction to the city, and the backhoe was removed over the weekend. We continue to watch the site and the activities of the city so that we are ready for whatever comes next. We continue to picket every Saturday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Later on in the presentation, Donna will let you know what our current protest and awareness raising campaign is. And after that, we will reveal what our next big steps are. Go to the next slide. So when we think about this campaign, we think of sort of three big lies that are being told about this road. I'm going to debunk the first one, and then the other two will be debunked by Deb Jack of Surrey Environmental Partners. So the first big lie is this idea that the road does not go through Bear Creek Park. Mayor McCollum and his Safe Surrey Coalition have repeatedly claimed that the road does not go through the park by pointing out the boundaries of what is known as the Bear Creek Park Reservation Area. This is the northern section of the park that has bylaw protection. However, if you know the area, you know trails go in and out of the northern section into the southern section and vice versa. The proposed road would destroy these trails, and those trails are most definitely located in Bear Creek Park. There are signs that say it on the ground in the park, and the city's own page for Bear Creek Park includes a map that labels both the north section and south section as Bear Creek Park. You can just Google it right now, go to the city webpage and see the map for yourself. We can't even say that the Mayor's Safe Surrey Coalition claims are technically true by not straying into that northern protected half of the park. This is because we know that they will be counting sidewalks, bike lanes, lighting, and other elements of the road as quote unquote park amenities and placing them within that Bear Creek Park reservation area. Finally, it should be obvious to everyone that the ruling coalition doesn't know much about ecology. Nature, broadly speaking, and the animals which make up the park more specifically, don't recognize lines on a city map. The northern portion of the park depends on the southern portion. Bisecting this ecological unit will do immeasurable harm to the whole park. That is something we find completely unacceptable. I'd now like to invite Deb Jack of Surrey Environmental Partners to refute the other two big lies. Deb Jack.
Good evening, everybody. Well, 88th and King George is the most dangerous intersection in Surrey. That is now a Surrey myth. I have no idea where the origin was, but when we did a whole lot of exploration, and I have to thank Mr. Landale for doing terrific statistical analyses and putting together statistics so that they were legible for the rest of us to understand. King George and 88th does not come out to being the most dangerous intersection in Surrey. Indeed, depending on what you're looking at, it's the 13th or the 11th. In some instances, depending on the time frame you look at, it's not even listed in the top 10. And indeed, I just told you that wasn't. People who drive that road don't know what is being talked about when Mayor McCallum and his people say that there is an accident that is extremely serious and or a death occurs every 4 days. Nobody experiences that. One of the reports that we got hold of is a law firm that puts out information, and over a 3-year period showed that the average number of deaths in the whole of Surrey was 20 a year. That's bad enough, but not 20, not 90 at 88th and King George. What's going to happen is that they will make 84th at King George and 84th at 140th, instead of right now, which are really essentially 3-way intersections, 4-way intersections. Whenever you have an intersection, you have accidents. That appears to be a law of roads. Because of the configuration of this particular road, there's going to be speeders on it all the time. That's what happens in Surrey. You should see the way the traffic goes along 88 as it goes down the slope into the intersection of 88 and King George on either side. The same thing is going to happen here. So it's going to be a road for rat runners and speeders. They also are saying that it's the third worst intersection in the province. No, it's not. It's not by a very, very long shot. And where they got that, I cannot figure out. Now, the road will not significantly harm Bear Creek Park, which is one of their allegations. Well, no, not that. That's nonsense. Whenever you put a road through a biodiversity, any kind of an area, you have to understand that up to 50 meters on either side of that road, or the road's attributes, which would be sidewalks, bike lanes, medians, boulevard, 50 meters further out, are all negatively impacted by the presence of that road. The road makes noise. Did you know, for example, that baby birds in the nest, cannot hear their parents when there's road traffic? There's research that indicates that the birds have to change the level of their songs in order to be heard. When you have a high value biodiversity area, which indeed this is, then if you cut it into pieces, that diminishes its ecological value enormously. And I've used an analogy as if we use the square part of the original park as a tadpole head and use the area south, you notice that from Ken's graphic, as a tail. It's like taking a great huge slash out of the tail of a tadpole. And so it's going to kill off the most important parts of this particular environmental area. The biodiversity conservation strategy refers to this as a high value protected forest natural area, including a number of high value creeks, rated high value for biodiversity, and designated an important large hub. Indeed, it's one of the few important large hubs that we've got in the city. The guts will be turned out of this ecological area, and it will be sort of like a killing field. They have to dig really deep in order to construct a road. So that means all of the life that is occurring below the surface of the soil will also be destroyed. And what is more, it's almost impossible for underground connections to continue to exist from one side of the road to the other. Right now, there is communication amongst all of those plants under the ground, particularly amongst the trees. I haven't got time to go into that. Salmon and trout return every year to spawn, and visitors can easily watch from the bridges that cross the creek, especially King Creek. And by the way, in order to put this road through, the city proposes not to continue to have a bridge because in the past they've recommended a bridge at King Creek. They're now planning on culverting it. No other jurisdiction of which I know anything is culverting. Every jurisdiction is daylighting creeks and watercourses of any kind. Daylighting means you simply open it, you take out the culvert. So you have a bridge going across, you can easily see what's going on underneath the bridge in the watercourse, as well as either side. This park is unique. And in this area that the road is planned to go through, there is an interface of 5 habitat types, rarely found in urban parks. Thanks to Ken for this information. We've got old field, wet meadow, forest, riparian, and creeks. Indeed, another biologist has referred to it as having a swamp forest, which is really cool because there's a whole clutch of cottonwoods. There's big trees in there. Those trees have been growing at about 80 years since the last logging of that area. Nature doesn't know that there's any kind of lines, doesn't respect them. So what's been developing there for 80 years, 80 plus years, is a high value ecosystem. There's absolutely no way that this road could go through and not cause irrevocable damage because it can't be fixed up or repaired. They keep telling us they're going to do this kind of stuff. They've not provided us with adequate information. They've not provided us with detailed drawings. They're not given the opportunity for consideration of what might and might not be done there. I have quickly looked over the so-called environmental assessment, which really deals with what might be the impacts and doesn't give us a mapping out of what exists right there now. But if this road is going to go through wetlands, no place that has any consideration for what the future requires is getting rid of important areas such as we have here at Bear Creek Park because of future considerations. Biodiversity crisis in the globe is really, really important. If we get rid of this area, if we impair it and degrade it, we are contributing to that biodiversity loss crisis. We are contributing to lowering the opportunity for citizens to have greater levels of health and well-being. People who live in city center in those towers have only got a landscaped park to go to right now. That's Holland Park. The closest two areas are Green Timbers, which is a coniferous forested area. Bear Creek is more of a deciduous forest. There's quite a different feel to both of them. Both of them is equally important to the health and well-being of the citizens of the entire city, not just people living locally, but they're the ones who are most easily able to access this terrific park. What else? I've got so many notes here. As our population grows and becomes more densified, we're going to need more large parks. Just looking at some information lately, they're saying that in order to deal with climate crisis, in order to deal with things such as this incredibly heat spell we've had, we need to have more urban forests. And Surrey plans on destroying the integrity of the forest, going to take out a whole whack of it. That makes no sense at all and does not respond to the realities of the 21st century. It is more as if the city is planning to do stuff that they were thinking about doing in the 1950s. When you put a road in, you attract more traffic. Right now, they're expecting 15 to 16,000 vehicles a day. They're planning on relieving 88th Avenue. That's not going to happen. This will get a busier road. No place is providing for more and more traffic. Indeed, jurisdictions all over North America, for example, are closing down lanes of roads and they're closing down roads. Take a look at what's happening in Vancouver. They're closing roads to vehicular traffic all over the place. Why is Surrey going backwards? Why is Surrey not valuing the one asset that is irreplaceable, which is the biodiversity areas, forested areas, wetland areas? And last and not least, one of the things that we've got right now in the area where they plan to plow this road through, 27 species of migratory birds were identified on the 16th of April. 27 species. That they've been coming back for 80 years. Their habitat will be gone. Where will they go? How many will stay? And that's one of the charms and delights of Bear Creek Park in that area. You can walk in the quiet, it's meditative. When you go at the end of that big loop, you can hardly hear the traffic over on King George. All of those things are going to be impaired with constant traffic running back and forth, east to west. It is a terrible idea, a terrible plan.
Perhaps that's a good place to leave it, Deb. We're running out of time given our previous technical difficulties.
Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, Deb. I believe Christy is with us here now, so perhaps we could go back to slide 2 and give Christy an opportunity. Christy, are you there? Oh no, it seems like we're having continued problems with getting Christy on the audio here. Okay, no worries. We'll just move on to the next presenter, which is Peter. Oh, Christy, I see you there. Are you able to use your audio?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Great.
Yay!
Hey, take it. Great, Christy. Take it away. I'm just making sure that Peter has the ability to share his screen, and Peter, you should be able to share your screen now. Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Got it. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. My name's Peter. I wanted to talk a little bit about the health benefits of nature. So I was born and raised in Surrey, and although I live in Kelowna now, Surrey is and always will be home. For the last couple of years in med school, I've been working on this project called the Park Prescriptions, and essentially it's Canada's first park prescription program where family doctors are now prescribing their patients to spend time in nature for both their mental and physical health. And over the last couple of years, one of the things that I got to work on is that we all know that nature is good for us, but I was given the responsibility of finding out exactly how it's good for you in what specific ways. So if you go to the Why Nature tab on this page, so just a quick summary, 90% of us say that we're happier when we're outside, and stress hormones drop significantly after just 15 minutes in the forest. And what's so significant about this is that it's independent of physical activity. Most people think that we need to be moving when we're outside, but just being in that physical space outside can lower your stress hormones substantially. We know that increasing nature time reduces your risk for heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, and especially in a time like this where we're always stuck inside, working from home, spending time in nature boosts our creativity. A few of the other things is that spending time in nature is very good for specific population groups. For those who have COPD, we know from literature that it reduces lung infections, and also for people who are dealing with cancer. It's been a very integral part of some people's path to recovery. And we also know that seniors who live close to walkable green spaces actually live longer, independent of all other covariable factors. And one thing that's out of these last 2 years, the one statistic that stood out to me the most and has and always will stand out is when it comes down to money. And we know that living in a neighborhood with 10 more trees per block improves your health in the same way as getting $10,000 more a year. 10,000. And so these are all very obvious things, and we kind of know that they would happen. But the third thing that I wanted to talk about is how it affects people who are living in this community. You may have heard of a term called intersectional environmentalism. It's essentially where environmentalism and social justice issues interact. And in an area that is predominantly South Asian, according to the last census, is a population that already feels these huge health disparities, doesn't live as long, has much higher levels of metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes and heart attacks. And now the green spaces that are actually harboring them and protecting their health are now being taken away. And I think in an era where we're trying to be more cognizant of what's happening to marginalized communities all over the world, I think this is a step in the bad direction. So thank you much for taking time to be here and listening.
Great. Thanks so much for that, Peter. It's very enlightening. And I suggest everybody check out that website. Maybe, Peter, you can just give us that website address one more time, maybe just vocally and in the chat. That'd be great. Okay, so if we can just go to the slide deck again and get up the next slide, which is the slide with Vansh on it. So I'm gonna invite Vansh up to speak now. You may have noticed him on both Global TV and on in the Surrey Now Leader with his song that sort of celebrates Bear Creek Park and is part of the campaign to save Bear Creek Park. But he's going to give a couple of minutes, sort of a youth perspective on the park. And then at the end of this meeting, we're going to play the meeting out by playing the song. So you'll get a chance to hear it if you haven't already. Vansh, why don't you just go ahead?
Yeah, so thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. And yeah, as you just said, I'm the guy that made the Save Bear Creek song, which we played at the end. So I know we're kind of running out of time, so I'll kind of keep this quick. So in school, we're taught about the environment and all that. And you look around Surrey and just in Lower Mainland in general, and there's so much development happening. Like just yesterday, we hit record temperatures with like the temperature going over 40. And this weekend, all my friends were all complaining about the heat. And now it's like, okay, now let's cut more trees after, everything's heating up. And I go to Enver Creek, which is a high school just at 84 and 144th. And quite often, especially like classes such as science and gym, we come to Bear Creek either for runs or study purposes. Now, if the road goes through, it's going to be passing Brookside Elementary, Enver Creek Secondary, a daycare, Maple Green and Janice Churchill, both are elementary schools. And I was talking to one of the English teachers at school, and he's about in his early 60s, so he knows what he's talking about. And he was saying how schools have been closed because of 88 Avenue extending and becoming a main road because it wasn't safe for children. And he was also saying how nobody would plan to have so many schools in the same area placed in the way they're placed with the idea of having a main road so close to them. So I think like a big concern is that there's so many schools, so many kids, and now traffic is being invited to the same area, and it's just not safe for the children. And frankly, everybody I talk to, like people my age, I'm 16 for those who don't know, they're not in favor of the road. And I remember like one of my favorite things to do, and it still is, was running to Bear Creek for gym class and stuff. And like I feel like all that's going to be taken away because it's not going to be safe, and there's going to be more pollution, and that just really sucks. So I think that's kind of like the youth perspective on it. I think I got everything. So yeah, thanks again for having me here.
Great, thanks so much for that, Vansh, and we'll get into that song a bit later. And you are right that we are running out of time because of some of our technical difficulties. It seems like we won't get much of a question and answer period at the end, but please do keep putting in your questions into the chat. And what we'll do is we'll create a sort of question and answer page for the website and email those out to everybody who attended this meeting so that you do get those answers, even if we don't get an opportunity to ask too many of them during this meeting. So with that, I'd like to go to the next slide and invite Jaeger to sort of give a parent's perspective on the park. And I think I hear one of his little ones already. So
yeah,
Jaeger, why don't you take it away?
Hi, sorry, little one. You can everybody see me? I'm not too sure. I want to introduce you to my two little boys here.
Yeah, we can see you, Jaeger.
This is Koa right here. Koa is 1.5, and he loves creeks. Like one of his first words was creek. And this is Cassius right here. Cassius is 2.5. I'm going to ask you, Cassius, what do plants eat? Eat soil. You're right. So already, like there was 1.5 and 2.5, and you think sometimes, oh, you know, kids aren't going to know nothing when they're super young, but they're already growing a very strong appreciation for nature, for wildlife, and just for the overall health of our environment. And as a parent, I'm sharing my views as a parent here. It's my goal to ensure that these little guys, these little critters, have a safe and healthy future. And we're not going to have that if we keep on taking away the very elements of the world that give us life. You know, trees, obviously everyone knows they give us oxygen. On our forests, help filter the water, the fresh water we enjoy here in British Columbia. And Bear Creek Park, during this massive heat wave we just had, I took a temperature of a parking lot near Bear Creek Park. The temperature read 42 degrees Celsius. I took a temperature of inside Bear Creek Park, and it was just hovering above 30 degrees Celsius. And it shows the importance of these urban environments, of these urban habitats, so specifically the urban forests. Like without them, we're nothing. And everybody said this already. I'm kind of just echoing it. What everyone's saying is, you need this. Without this, we're not going to have a future for our kids. And it's quite evident. That's more and more evident as time goes on and as global temperatures increase and we have more severe storms. So as a parent, I just want to say thank you to everybody that's here, that's participating, that's giving their best to stop this, because like some people have said, especially Ken, is this has been challenged before and we have been successful. And I think, and I hope that we can be successful again. So for everyone who's helping, thank you. Don't lose hope. Let's keep this going. And if you feel like you don't have a voice, if you feel like you can't make a difference, you can. And that's been proven time and time again. So thank you everybody very much. And let's beat this road. Let's make sure it doesn't take place. Let's get out and protest. Let's call our city. Let's do the best we can for our little ones right here. Thanks everybody.
Great. Thanks so much, Jaeger, for sharing your perspective and for introducing us to your little ones. That's great. So if we can move on to the next slide, we'll turn the table over to one of those people who's helping in the campaign that Jaeger mentioned, Donna. Donna, if you wouldn't mind talking about the latest phase of our public campaign.
Okay, our trees provide habitat for wildlife, restore our health and well-being, and give us the oxygen we breathe. We've heard all that tonight. If you found in the last few days that it's been hot, guess what? It will get hotter. If the mayor and his supporting 4 members have their way, 84th Avenue will go through Bear Creek Park from King George to 140th Street. In the process, many trees will be removed. The life that lives in and around our trees will be lost. And another protective canopy within Surrey will be gone. Tie a yellow ribbon in your front yard, townhouse, condo, or wherever you live. Write your message on the ribbon to save Bear Creek Park. You will show your support in 3 ways. To Bear Creek Park, it's Surrey's crown jewel. To the trees for our future generations, and to support the message, no to the road. We will have yellow ribbons at our Saturday protest rallies, and if you can't attend, find yellow ribbon in your sewing basket or at a dollar store. Tie a yellow ribbon around your trees to show your support for them and all our trees do for us. Speak up for your trees. Let Surrey know, let your mayor and council know, and say no to the road. Thanks for attending tonight.
Great. Great. Thanks for that, Donna. And now if we go to the next slide, this is sort of the announcement that I guess many of you have come here to hear. So some of you already know that we received a small amount of funding through West Coast Environmental Law's Dispute Resolution Fund, which is called the EDRF. This initial funding allowed us to hire a lawyer for initial fact funding phase to research the issue and see if this challenge would be appropriate for further funding. So today, we're happy to announce that we've been approved for stage 2 funding of the EDRF. This gives us an additional $10,000 for legal expenses. Not only that, but WCEL has indicated that we are likely to be approved for the additional stages of the EDRF funding as the legal challenge we launch against the city advances. So previous recent WCEL EDRF grantees include those fighting to uphold the federal carbon pricing law before the Supreme Court and the stopping of a cut block of old growth forest in the Dakota Bowl area of Mount Elephantstone. We're very happy to be among such other important legal challenges. We won't be revealing our specific legal case just yet. Frankly, it doesn't confer us any advantage to be open about it at this time. But suffice it to say, West Coast Environmental Law believes that we have a winnable case. Otherwise, they wouldn't be willing to give us tens of thousands of dollars to mount the legal challenge. And this is where you all come in. The EDRF funding model involves West Coast Environmental Law footing much of the bill, but it requires the applicants raise some of the funds themselves. The exact amount we need to raise will depend on the evolving nature of the case, and we will keep the community updated as this proceeds. But I can say that the money contributed to the Friends of Bear Creek Park from individual donors using our donate button, as well as some funds contributed by both Force of Nature and Surrey Environmental Partners, more than covered our initial legal expense during that initial first phase legal research I mentioned. Now that we are in the second phase of funding, we are asking that you all open your hearts and your wallets to the effort to save Bear Creek Park. We are accepting donations over at www.savebearcreekpark.ca, so that is the best place to go. We are collecting funds through Force of Nature, which is a registered nonprofit, so we have the lowest possible transaction fees. If you are not comfortable with using electronic means to donate, then please contact me directly at sebastian.saida@gmail.com, and hopefully somebody can put that email into the chat, and include the word donation in the subject line, and we can work something out. Please note, though, that we are not a charity, and therefore we cannot issue a tax deductible receipt. So that's the big announcement. We're going to be moving a legal challenge against the city to stop this road, and we're pretty sure that we're going to win. So if we can go to the next slide. So this is the moment when we were thinking that we would be taking questions and comments, but as I mentioned, we just really don't have the time for it. So please continue to put questions and comments in the chat, and we will collect them and answer them in a follow-up email. So if we can just go to the next slide, and perhaps I'll share my screen to get to this point. We'll be ending the night by sharing Vansh's video. Vansh, would you like to say a couple words before we play your video?
Sure, I can say a quick something. Yeah, so I guess I'll just talk about how I decided to make the video. So I was driving down 84 with my dad. We were going to go get a haircut. I actually saw you guys, the protesters, and I asked my dad, "What's going on?" He's like, "They're building a road," and that's when it all kind of started. I started doing some research. I thought the road was stupid, and then bam, you guys got a song out of it. So yep, there you go.
That's a great story. Okay, so I'm just going to mute myself and play the song. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Like snort.
Dear Doug, I heard they're gonna combine this road, make it go through the park, and you were the deciding vote. I can't do much, so I thought I'd grab this microphone, hoping that maybe through a song I can change your mind, you know. For a lot of us, this park isn't a park, it's like a home. It's where we played on the grass, and on our bikes we rode. Birthday parties, barbecues, and the smiles of folks. But now how do I bring my grandkids here when I get old? There will be trees cut where birds put their offspring in. Oil pollution in creeks that are homes to frogs and fish. Also more pollution in the air that I breathe in. And this is the exact reason why India's low on oxygen. Listen, this road will be killing habitats, salmon, squirrels, and their lands. And you can't replace a home if you say you can, I laugh at that. Like imagine making thousands of memories at your home. That someone knocks on your door like, hey, you gotta move, we're building a road. The oil gets into the creek and into bodies of marine life. I mean seriously, imagine a frog with 3 eyes. Because it's mommy chemicals from pollution in the creek, right? Not to mention all the light pollution that's coming from the street lights, making it easier for predators to catch and fight the prey. And nocturnal animals can't distinguish between night and day. I know you're trying to save car accidents, I bet someone died today. But at this rate, we're all just gonna die from climate change. Dear Doug, you should know that this ain't a diss. I know that maybe this song won't help the park or be saving it, but this is the indigenous land and man, they savored it. And if you can't respect their land, then you can't call yourself Canadian. We're all connected to this land, but now the salmon's not safe. The road's going through both creeks and they have to go to their spawn place. CO2 from cars affect the earth more than we all think. Sometimes I wonder, how long until acid rain is just called rain? This road was a choice, and the choice was stupid. There'll be oil and water, and also noise pollution. But I'm sick of complaining, I'm gonna give you some solutions. Maybe you can forget about the road project if you use them. What if we added streetlights and made the traffic slow? Added more lanes so there's more space for cars on the road. And maybe even a couple signs that say be careful as you go. That would make people more cautious about their surroundings, yo. I made memories in this park that I will never forget. I was only 3 and I would ride my bike until the sunset. Long walks throughout the park joking with my closest friends. It's the same park where my sister took her first steps. It's just a few trees, but it still makes the earth warmer by portions. Global warming is happening and it's horrible, you know it. Sometimes I wonder if the next generation will swim in an ocean. Sometimes I wonder if my kids will ever build a snowman. Dear Doug, I get it, the population's increasing. There's so many people here now that it's hard to believe it. And we gotta protect the people, man, that's a strong valid reason. But there's gotta be a better way than cutting down all these trees, man. Animals are people too, you gotta treat them fairly. I see trees cut for development purposes, it's so scary. So much carbon dioxide in the air will make the air weak. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I don't want to say goodbye to Bear Creek.